Hey, welcome to the lighter side of true crime with Kai the Hatchet-Wielding Hitchhiker and Keith Rovere. Smash, smash, smash.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of The Lighter Side of True Crime. I'm your host, Keith Rovere. Today, we are going to be talking to Kai, the axe-wielding hitchhiker. Smash, smash, smash. You have to know who he is. If you don't, I'd encourage you, one, just do a Google search and you recognize him right away. Now, when you see the video of him, he's going to have, short hair. But before he had these long, almost like dreadlock red hair with the bandana on, he was on Jimmy Kimmel and hitchhiked from Canada all over the United States. And on another podcast, we're going to be talking about the fun, crazy adventures that he had. This is a little bit more on the serious side. He wanted to get some information out there for those of you who saw the Netflix documentary, just followed the story in general. If you haven't seen the Netflix documentary, I would recommend pausing this. It's worthwhile. Watch the documentary, and then so a lot of this will make more sense to you when you hear what went down. Because he was convicted of killing an attorney, Joseph Galfy, who put him up for the night, really 2 nights. And we'll hear from Kai about what, in his mind, what really went down. And we were going to do a video check, a live video chat. Couldn't get the live video chat to work. It's just a crappy system his facility is using. I don't even mention the name of it, of the program. But we can do. He can upload 30-second video clips to me. So all the important questions that he wanted to discuss and talk about, I'm going to say the question here in video form, and then I'm going to upload his responses. Now, they're 30-second increments, so it's a little wonky, but you obviously get the gist of it. Some words were cut off short a little bit when his time got cut off, but you'll understand what he was talking about. Nothing really was missed in that. So it's a little bit of a different format, but you kind of get the gist of what he wants to get across and parts of the trial and all the friends of, again, the guy he murdered, was a prominent attorney. And so the friendships that this attorney had with people at the crime scene, the judge and all that, and there's a lot of things you didn't really hear in the Netflix documentary, which is very important for him to get out there. And I think there's some very important pieces of information that the public need to know. And he backs up with a lot of facts and a lot of paperwork. And you'll hear an NC from Kai, for that. And so the first question was about where he met Joseph Galfy, and kind of was it common just to go, crash at somebody's house the first time that you meet somebody? And let's hear from Kai.
The truth about the first night is that after the Fresno smash incident, people was walking up to me, random people on the street going, "Yo, you're Kai the Hitchhiker, let me get a selfie, do the smash, smash, smash thing." And I was self-medicating with alcohol from my PTSD. So, I was drinking all the fucking time. People was walking up to me, inviting me to the places. It was normal for me. If somebody said, "Yo, I got dinner for you, you can crash on my couch," that was just par for the course.
So talk a little bit about not just when you met Joseph, but the first day, when you went back to his house. What kind of went down there? What was that whole scene like?
On May 10th of 2013, I just got back into New York City from Rhode Island. It rained that night. I was trying to sleep outside, but I had to duck in to the Port Authority to use my Greyhound ticket to sleep there. I woke up that morning, I went busking in Times Square, I went over to get myself some breakfast. I was sleep deprived as a motherfucker. I got back to Times Square, I was waiting to cross the street, and that's when that creep walked up to me. When that creep first walked up to me, he asked me, "Where are you from? You look lost." I told him I was from Canada. He asked me, "Where are you going?" I said, "New Jersey." And then he asked me if I wanted something to eat and a ride over there. And at the time, I didn't see any problem with it because all these other people were coming up to me on the street and offering me food and a place to stay and stuff like that. But looking back, he wanted to know if I was an immigrant because he figured immigrants wouldn't report him. When I got back to his house, he got takeout, and I was sitting in the living room, drinking beer, eating the food, and I was texting with this woman who I had met on my Facebook page who wanted to meet up with me. And I had plans to go meet up with her, but she ended up not being able to get a ride, and she thought I was in Newark. So she was warning me, like, "Yo, Newark is really bad. You don't want to sleep outside." And that's when the creep said, "Yo, you can stay in my guest room if you want." My last beer of the night had like a metal taste afterwards, and I'd already had like 5 or 6 beers that night, so I thought that it was like a filling or something. But he asked me if I wanted to take a shower with him, and that's when I realized, like, oh, he's gay. But that didn't pose a problem to me because I had just finished staying with this
this famous gay artist named David Quadrini had invited me to stay at his artist commune in Venice Beach. And I mean, like, he would never do something like that. When I woke up after the first night, I had a headache, which I thought was from a hangover. I went to use the bathroom, and I was washing my hands afterwards. I seen that there was a crusty residue on my face, but I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was drool or something at the time.
Of course, people are going to want to know the basic follow-up question is, when you saw something like that on the side of your face, why would you go back to the house?
So, some people have asked me, why would you go back if you had been assaulted the first night? And the thing is, I woke up the first night and there was something on my face, but I thought it was drool. I thought it was slobber or something. Like, because most people don't do that kind of shit. Like, your mind doesn't automatically jump to, oh, somebody did something to me in my sleep because I have crusty residue on my face. That's not what most people do. I stay with hundreds and hundreds of people. Nobody fucking did that. It wasn't until the second night I looked in the mirror I realized, fuck, that's what he did to me.
Now, I think people are a little confused because they saw a video of you after the first night that you were there. He was dropping you off at the train station. Looks like he's buying you a ticket, but you guys hugged after that. And people really want to know, what was that hug all about? I mean, were you freaked out? Were you scared? Or you just didn't really know anything was going on at that point?
So the creep drove me to the train station afterwards, and he got me a ticket to Asbury Park, which I thought was still part of Greater Newark. Before I left, I gave him a hug like I did with anybody else in that time period. And you've seen the pictures of me online. I mean, I hug anybody I stay with, right? But the big difference, and it's something you got to pay attention to, any of the women I slept with, I put my hand in the small of her back. Like, that's a different kind of hug, you know what I'm saying? So you can tell the difference just by that.
I think another sticking point, the people who are wanted me to ask you, and I know you want to talk about it too, was if everything was on the up and up, why did you cut your hair? People think it's more like kind of disguising yourself and about to go on the run. So why did you cut your hair?
When I got to Asbury Park, I waited for hours for that woman that I had met on Facebook, the one who I was supposed to go and meet up with. And she kept saying, oh, yeah, I'll be there in a bit. Yeah, I'll be there in a bit. I went to go get lunch. I got back. It started getting hot. I mean, compared for me, because I'm from Canada. So I cut off my hair, and I went to go and exercise. I'm American Indian, so I kept my hair. I wanted to, do a ceremony with it when I got out to the forest. I kept waiting. Hey, wait, that reminds me. There's video of me with short hair at Asbury Park that the investigators destroyed.
So you ended up going back to Joseph's house. And can you talk about that second night and what went wrong?
So after waiting for hours and hours and hours for this woman, she didn't show up, and I figured, okay, she's ghosting me. But she told me that Newark was a really bad place to be out at night, and I figured I was still in Newark. So I was like, shit, well, this guy who I thought was cool at the time had given me his number and said I could stay in his guest room. So I called him, and he said, yeah, you can stay at my guest room, and he drove over to pick me up at the train station. When I got back to his place, he poured me a beer in a mug, and I drank it. I was watching TV, and he had like this bar and an island in the middle of his kitchen. I was turned around facing the TV. He made some burgers, and I was sipping my beer. And after I finished eating the burgers and I started into my second beer, I started getting like fuzzy, and I can't remember anything after that. And I don't know exactly what happened, but I think that he led me down the hall when I was in a drug stupor. I woke up on the floor of the creep's bedroom, and he was over top of me to my left side. And I realized that he was tugging on my pants, and I sat up and I punched him in the face, and he grabbed onto my head and he started shoving me into the bed, and I was trying to push him away from me, and I kicked up from underneath, and he slammed into me, and I was so scared I pissed myself, and I fought my way out. I fought my way out from underneath him, but I blacked out and I can't remember. At trial, the medical examiner said that his face was broken in 3 places. His neck was broken in 3 places, from his head snapping backwards 3 times. That's how hard I kicked up. That's how bad I was panicking. But I don't remember leaving the house. The next thing I remember, I was standing in a parking lot.
You mentioned that you blacked out, and from PTSD, maybe some other things, other traumatic events. What do you remember first? You said you blacked out, but when did your memory start coming back? You remember, the part when you got arrested? When did it start coming back to you? And what do you remember about the arrest?
When I came to after the second night, I was standing in a parking lot. I walked from there to a diner, and I used the bathroom, and I went in. I looked in the mirror, and I remembered that morning, and I realized what it was on my face that morning. It wasn't until that second night that I realized that. I started retching and dry heaving into the toilet.
After I got out of the bathroom at the diner, I just went into autopilot. And for me, like being a street performer by profession, like a busker who plays my guitar over in public and stuff, even on my worst days, for me, autopilot is just like communicating with people and trying to get to where I need to go. So I talked to some of the guys at the diner, and they told me where the train station was because I had no idea where I was. And they gave me some change. I went to the train station. I took a train over to Long Branch. And I spent the night underneath an abandoned rail car over at Long Branch. I woke up on the morning of the 13th of May, and I took the train to Asbury Park. And I waited for hours and hours, and finally that one woman I had met on Facebook showed up. And she brought me to meet some of her other woman friends over in Philly. I spent the night at another woman's place over in somewhere in New Jersey, in South New Jersey. The next day I took the train again. I met another woman. I stayed over at her place. And we was back and forth between Philly until I was arrested in Philly. That was on the 16th I got arrested.
You know, as we were talking back and forth in emails, you mentioned that at the crime scene, that there was some information that the media never heard about. What was that? And what do you want to tell everybody about what we didn't hear, whether it be at the trial or, you know, even from the documentary?
One thing the media didn't report on is what was happening at the crime scene during all this time. So, meanwhile, back at the crime scene, there was two friends of the rapist showed up. Both of these guys, these Italian guys, Michael Timoni and Richard DiCaprio, were lawyers and were also friends with the rapist. And they called the first responding officer on his personal cell phone, not on 911. And then that first responding officer, Keith Meehan, called the head judge on his personal cell phone. So after the first responding officer called the head judge on his personal cell phone, he called the rest of the cops in the Clark Police Department. And 24 of them, no less than 24 of them, showed up to the crime scene and walked in and through the house. Why is there so many cops in the house, you may wonder? Well, because the rapist was president of the police union in that town. After every cop in town had been through the house, around 4 o'clock that day, the medical examiner showed up at the house. He's the guy who does the autopsy. When he was walking in, he seen the head judge there, together with a whole bunch of other judges from in that county. Why was the head judge there? Well, he had been called on a cell phone. Why was that? Because the first responding officer was his law client, and the head judge was law partners with the rapist. So those two Italian guys who first showed up at the scene, they got brought in by the cops for questioning. The first one, Michael Timoni, he said that he was from an Italian family, and we don't let stuff like this go. And the second guy, Richard DiCaprio, also said that he was, you know, from the family, and that he regularly had lunch at his restaurant, Just Plain Days, with the first responding officer and the rapist, and a whole bunch of the other cops who were. The cops also interviewed the rapist's brother, James Galfy, who was the chief of police. James Galfy started talking to the investigator about how the rapist had a whole bunch of untraceable cash in his lock boxes, which was part of his estate. And then he started saying shit about how the plumber does the plumbing. Now, you might not know this, but the head of the De Cavalcante crime family of La Cosa Nostra, Sam De Cavalcante, his nickname is the plumber. To somebody who's standing by a silver car. That person by the silver car is James Galfy, the brother of the rapist. What's in the bags? I don't know. But after he started talking about untraceable cash, somebody went into the crime scene and started grabbing shit for him. What was in the bag?
Now, being Joseph was a prominent attorney, I'm assuming there was a lot of friends involved, especially at the county jail. That's what we want to ask you about. When you first got to the county jail, because I know you're there for a few years before the trial. What was it like for you there? I'm sure you had a lot of friends that were the guards there, at the unit you were in. Talk a little about your time there and how bad was it?
When I first got arrested and I went to the county jail in Elizabeth, a bunch of those cops there were friends with the cops from Clark. So they started psychologically torturing me. They were shaking my door in the middle of the night, making it so I couldn't sleep. They were standing by the door, like saying all sorts of fuck shit to me, like, oh, just fess up. You're guilty, just fess up. Like, over and over and over, 3 shifts a day. Wouldn't let me fucking sleep. I was sleep deprived. They were trying to hypnosis me. Like, they was doing all sorts of fuck shit. And this kept going on for years and years and years. It took 6 years to get the trial.
There were reports that the head judge in the case actually was at the crime scene. I think even the responding officer was a client of Joseph, too, Joseph Galfy. Was that true?
When Mega was still on stand, he let loose a bombshell. He said that he had received a phone call from the scene from a police officer who's a law firm client. So that means that first responding officer was a law client of the head criminal judge and the rapist himself. So the officer in charge of preserving evidence was a fucking law client of the guy. At that same hearing, Judge Mega got called to the stand to explain himself about the judge's Klan meeting. Here's that same transcript I was showing you, right? You have Judge Mega, and he got sworn in. Later on that same page, he got asked, "Are you familiar with the rapist?" And he said, "Yeah." He said he was a partner at the same law firm. You see that shit? That's the head judge was partners with him. I'm about to show you a transcript of the February 8th, 2018 change of venue hearing at my criminal trial, okay? So here's the transcript. See right there my name, right? And you got the whole date and all that shit, right? So here is the investigator saying that she talked to the medical examiner, and he said head criminal judge Mega was at the scene. You see that shit? With other judges too.
So I just showed you evidence that the rapist Joseph Galfy was law partners with the head criminal judge of Union County, Judge Robert Mega, at the same law firm, and they were part of the same political funding network as Ted Romanko from the Netflix movie. Now that funding network put in place the politicians that just approved of the sale of public land from Fort Monmouth to Netflix and gave Netflix $387 million on top of that in tax rebates to cover up that network's wrongdoing.
You also talked about how witnesses were bribed. Now, is that something that you just think? Do you have proof of? And where did that information come from about witnesses being bribed in the case?
The cops initially said that I couldn't have been drugged because the effects that I stated were different than the common effects of rape drugs. But then I sued them. And you see this letter, they wrote to me about this. They indicated the doctor, Dr. Pandina, they said that, nah, the effects that he states do line up with that, but he can't testify anymore because last year his research institute received funds from the estate of the rapist, $150,000. How do you know it was $150,000 that the witness received, Kai? Well, I know that the drug effect expert and the medical examiner who did the autopsy received $150,000 because I sued them and I seen this. Look at that, $150,000. That's a real check. And look at who signed it. The chief of police, the brother of the rapist, James T. Galfy. That shit's real, yo. They rigged my fucking trial. They bribed the witnesses.
Now, kind of going back to the hair, now you claimed that you cut your hair before you went back for the second night, before the crime happened. But the police say that you cut your hair after the crime. Just touch on that a little bit more. Was there any evidence of this saying that, when obviously the police say you cut it after, you said you cut it before? Was there any videotape footage? Is there any proof that that is the case or that was the case? Because that's a sticking point for a lot of people.
I'm going to show you a close-up of that bed that I showed you in the previous picture. You see right there, there's a cop's flashlight right there. There's a duvet that you've seen in the previous picture. There's some lamps in the background there. And you see right there that circle. That's where they found my short, dark hair because he shoved my fucking head into the side of the bed when I woke up on the floor. Like they had evidence I woke up on the floor, but then they was trying to say something else in the media. All right, so I told you that the first responding officer was a law client of the rapist. What I haven't told you yet, the rapist was president of the police union. His brother was the chief of police. So when police were writing reports like this about video surveillance, they had something about the Asbury Park Transportation Center. You see that right there? And they had all of these times they had entries for, except for that one right there, 1244. So they had evidence I had cut my hair before I went back, but they deleted it.
Now, in high-profile cases, you usually want a high-profile lawyer, a very expensive, qualified lawyer, but you had a public defender. How was that for you? How was that relationship, and how do you think he did representing yourself?
I tried dismissing the public defender that they gave me before trial because I realized he was working against me. They wouldn't let me do it. So I got to trial, and during jury selection, the judge is meeting up with the jurors in the cafeteria and telling them what to think. And then these jurors are being held by the same sheriffs that are friends with these Clark police. And so these sheriffs are using their body language in the courtroom to try to make any of my witnesses, including myself, look all like fucking uncredible and shit, and trying to bolster the state's witnesses. The judge wouldn't let me get evidence of the crime scene tape being broken, of the crime scene being pillaged by the friends of the rapist. And then when I was trying to go up and testify in my defense, the day before I went up to testify, the jail contrived the reason to throw me an ad seg and keep me sleep deprived before I went up there. And then when I went up on stand, the judge jumped up my fucking throat and he started cross-examining me. The prosecutor didn't even have to do anything. The judge was up there fucking prosecuting me. If that's not bias, I don't know what is. My defense counsel at trial, who I tried to get rid of, at closing arguments, he went up to the jury and he tried saying some fuck shit in a certain way so it looked different on the transcript. Here's how he said it. He said, the state's going to tell you something that, well, this shows my client is full of crap. He did this intentionally. He purposefully ran out of the house. They're going to say that... And this motherfucker said that to the jury. How could any of them acquit me after that? That wasn't a fair trial.
You also talked about, at least to me anyway, there's a connection between like the producer of the Netflix documentary, Joseph Galfy, his brother, other New Jersey politicians. What was that all about? What is the connection and what is the importance of that connection?
So it wasn't just the local government in that municipality in New Jersey that was part of that network. Here's the election law enforcement records for Scutari for Senate. Okay? That's Nicholas Scutari, the senator in New Jersey. Here is Ted Romanko from the Netflix movie, currency contribution. Here is the police union that the rapist was the president of. That's a lot of money. I'm going to tell you about Scutari. Nicholas Scutari is the chairperson of New Jersey Senate Judiciary Committee. Other politicians on this committee, like Ray Lesniak, Paul Sarlo, and Joe Cryan, were also funded by the network I showed you. This Judiciary Committee decides who gets to be a judge in New Jersey every 7 years. So if a judge pleases this committee, then they get to keep their job and their pension. But if they don't, then they lose it. That's who is deciding my case, from the trial and the appeal, too. So I showed you evidence that the Rapist Network funded the committee that selects who gets to be a judge or not in New Jersey. Well, they also funded Governor Phil Murphy, and he appointed the officers of the Fort Monmouth Economic Revitalization Authority that just approved of a $387 million tax break to Netflix to accompany the 300 acres of land they just got. On top of that, they decide who gets access to true crime stories. It's called access journalism. The way access journalism works is that prosecutors and police have a monopoly on information and access to true crime stories. That's big money. And they can say to media, look, suppress this story. Don't publish this. Publish something else, and we'll give you special access. And they can also say to media, look, if you run this story, we're going to ruin you. You ain't going to get access no more. It's called bribery on your taxpayer dollar. So, Ted Romanko, the friend of the rapist who said he was in the same circles as the rapist, now you know what those circles are, right? And he going on there spreading all this shit in the media about me, and people just accept it as true. Because, I mean, you're supposed to be able to trust what's in the legacy media, right? So I'm trying to go on Facebook, I'm trying to go on YouTube, I'm trying to say what actually happened. But if you look at the view count of my original video, even after a #1 Netflix movie, it's still a 4 million. Why is that? Because the view count got limited. I got suppressed in the media.
And how do you think all this relates about how you were portrayed in the media, you know, from the documentary to the media perception of you? How do you think this all correlates?
So when Romanko and the Rapist Network went to Netflix and got all that narrative control, they started pushing that I was mentally ill. They went to a estranged family that I haven't talked to in over a decade, and who doesn't even know me, so they could cover up for their own misdeeds. Then they got these producers who took advantage of when I had a PTSD episode and I was self-medicating with alcohol after that shit in Fresno. And then they found a couple of guys who had an axe to grind who fucking made shit up about me.
And you wanted me to ask you about funding the Netflix documentary, something about another bribe or something about a piece of land that was sold or as a bribe or something like that. Can you expand on that a little bit?
That whole bidding process was approved by politicians. These politicians are funded. In New Jersey, they have to file these forms about their funding. Look at Linda Stender's distinctive handwriting right there. Now, you're going to recognize a name in her distinctive handwriting from that movie purportedly about me. Ted Romanko. Remember that creepy old guy? Now look at who else. There's another creepy old guy right there. Galfy. Right there. Same distinctive handwriting and Mega. Judge Mega. We got 2 bidders down. One of them didn't exist. Another one was made like a couple weeks after the bidding process started. Now, what about the other bidder other than Netflix? RDR Partners LLC. When was that shit made? May 25th of 2022. So this shit was made less than 2 weeks before bidding closed. And RDR Partners is Ed Russo of Russo Development Corporation, who Netflix has contracted to build all of their warehouses. That shit's collusive. That wasn't a real bidding process. All right, that court document said there was another bidder called Mega Parcel Development LLC. So this one, right, Mega Parcel Development, it did exist, but it has been revoked for failure to pay annual reports. You see right there, revoked for not filing annual reports for 2 consecutive years. When was this shit made? Well, January 27, 2022. All right, I just showed you an official court document. It said there was 4 bidders. One of them was Extel Acquisitions LLC. Here's another official document. This one right here is from the State of New Jersey Department of Treasury. See that? Extel Acquisitions LLC does not appear because it never existed. All right? And just in case you thought I might have done a typo, here's Extel Acquisition, singular, not plural. That one don't exist either. So that bidder was fake. It never even existed. I'm going to show you a document. This right here is the purchase and sale agreement. It's an official court document. You see that at the top part right there. It's between Netflix and Fort Monmouth. Now you look right up there. It says December 2021, the FMERA board decided to offer the purchase. Now you look at each of those, RDR Partners, right? 4 proposals, Extel Acquisitions, Mega Parcel Development, and Netflix. All right? So those are all the bidders in this public land bid.
And you also said something about, I think it was like altered testimony or something with the case. What was that specific? I didn't quite understand that. Some testimony was altered?
Ted Romanko from the Netflix movie controlled all the press releases back when Union County Prosecutor's Office started their proceedings against me. Now, if you look at the newspaper coverage, they used to say that the rapist was found in his bed, but you've seen pictures. He was on the floor. They used to say that I cut my hair afterwards, but you've seen pictures of the short, dark hair on the side of the bed. You've seen that there was video of me with short hair before I even went back. They said that the head judge's number was found in the rapist's son's phone, but he never had a son. It was found in the rapist's phone. When Netflix started asking around Fresno for musicians who played a show with me, Gabriel Francisco, whose real name is Gabriel Robert Sanchez, decided he was going to make shit up about me to get his lame band in a Netflix movie because he could never get there by real talent. But the truth is that in the whole 10 years leading up to that movie, he never went to authorities with that bullshit he was spewing. And as a matter of fact, they did toxicology on the joint itself. They did toxicology on McBride's blood. There was nothing in it but weed. Netflix found a white supremacist Fresno County Sheriff officer named Jeff Stricker who sympathized with McBride. But Jeff Stricker was never at the scene. You see, cops at the scene knew that I was innocent. Jeff Stricker went off what McBride said, but Jeff Stricker also changed his story in the movie from what he said at trial. He contradicted his trial testimony in the movie. You want to know the truth about the McBride incident? It's that McBride himself admitted to people at the scene that he intended to, quote, kill all the N-words, close quote. But he actually used the N-word. He admitted to people afterwards. And it wasn't until he talked to a lawyer that he started making up all these other stories, and they don't even match. And then he decided to play crazy. Another narrative that Romanko and the Rapist Network are trying to push in the Netflix movie is about a Facebook post I made that says, is vigilante pedophile hunting a good idea? And they're trying to use that to say, oh, look, he's a vigilante. He hunts down sex predators and child molesters and ends their lives. But in reality, that post is talking about To Catch a Predator shit, where they find creeps who are trying to meet up with little kids, and they catch them with the camera going like, what the fuck are you doing, man? What the fuck's wrong with you? And then post it to their boss's webpage. If you look at the narratives that they're trying to push in a Netflix movie, at the root of them, they're just rape myths that predators use to try to discredit the survivors. So they say to the survivors, nah, they're liars. They're sluts. They're crazy. They're just doing it for attention. I mean, just look at them going out there dressed that way, acting so provocatively. They're practically asking for it. Is that who you want running Netflix?
And also to kind of just go back where we were talking about before, kind of to wrap things up, one of the biggest questions that people wanted me to ask you, at least outside of the fun stuff, we'll get to that another time, but as far as regarding this case, people want to know, why didn't you report it? And once you realized it was on the side of your face with the assault, why wasn't that report? Like, why did you go back in the second night, so maybe eliminate all aspects of the crime? Why didn't you just report it?
Some people had asked me, if you knew after that an essay had happened, why wouldn't you report it? So why wouldn't a homeless guy report a prominent attorney who is the president of the police unit, whose brother was the chief of police, to the police, so that the head prosecutor could prosecute him, even though he was friends with him, in front of the rapist's other friend, the head judge?
All right, there you have it. A conversation with Kai the Axe-Wielding Hitchhiker. There's a lot of stuff there. A lot of deep stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. He really wanted to get his side of events out there. He believes passionately in his innocence, that that he was sexually assaulted, he was defending himself, and that's what this is for. To get people get their side of the story out, so you can make an informed decision. You saw what a documentary said, or you read in the papers, but you heard directly from him. So this was his side of the story, and that's what my platform is. These are a lot of questions that he wanted me to ask him, because me, the podcast, I'm the lighter side guy. I keep it light, funny, and airy, and get the people know who they are as a human being. But it was important for me to ask these specific questions, because this is what he wanted to get out there. I'm not a journalist. I'm not one of those, what about this? What about that? He wanted me to ask these specific questions. So it was very important to get that specific information out there that probably most people haven't heard before. Again, with the people that he sued, and get the paperwork trails out there, and everything, all the documents that he had. It was very important for him to see. Now, you can imagine why. So we're going to have him on again. Again, share this video, get it out there. When I put the post out there, like the beginning of this video, when he starts out, hey, check out me on lighter side of true crime, smash, smash, smash. That video, just that little clip of that video, I think on my Instagram page, I got like 100,000 views. On what was the other one of the other social platform? I think TikTok had like 75,000 views. So people are interested in Kai. I mean, he's just a bigger than life personality. I mean, it's awkward to to talk to him. I've been talking to him for a while now. To see him in prison like that, because we're so used to seeing him out and about. And one of the questions I didn't get to ask him here, we ask him, when we do a little bit more of a lighthearted one, where the whole world was his home. He just traveled everywhere, from country, to Canada, to here. And he slept at a different, laid his head down at a different place every night. But now he's at the same place, the same room, the same bed every night. Never got to talk to how that made him feel. Obviously, he got off to a very rocky start at the jail, at the county jail, how he was, sleep deprived and everything else that he was saying. I can't imagine how hard that was. But again, that's for another time. We'll get into that and some of his travel stories. But again, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope some information was relayed to you in a way it was very understandable. Again, he brought a lot of documents with him and his version of all the events. So I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll have him back on again. All right. So I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, see ya.